Is the COVID-19 pandemic over, as President Joe Biden says? Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And you could chime in live and local at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and comment that way. We'll do what we can to read your comments here on air. But again, the best way to do it is to call now at 217-629-7970. And we can get your thoughts live on the air. So today's poll question at WMAY.com is indeed this question about, do you think the pandemic's over? Something that President Joe Biden recently told 60 Minutes. And as it stands right now, most of you say yes. The pandemic is over. 71% of you say yes. Let's go ahead and hear what the president had to say in a recent interview with 60 Minutes. And apparently this was 6 days ago when the interview was conducted, but 60 Minutes only posted the video Sunday evening. So here's what President Joe Biden had to say to 60 Minutes when walking around the Detroit Auto Show.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
So again, the pandemic's over, according to President Joe Biden. But what's interesting is there's no fanfare. There's no ticker tape parade. There's no, yay, we did it. We got through this together. We are successful. The pandemic's over. There's none of that. There's no celebrations on CNN, which had the ticker going for most of the pandemic during at least President Donald Trump's tenure. They took that off of their scroller after President Joe Biden took office, interestingly, even though more people have died of COVID or with COVID under President Joe Biden's tenure. So interesting to see this. But no ticker tape parade, no grand pronouncements, no, parading in the streets, nighttime fireside chat from the president saying, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We got through the pandemic. Through your hard efforts, we are now through it. The pandemic's over. Those are the words that President Joe Biden just uttered to 60 Minutes. Again, let's go ahead and hear this from President Joe Biden, then we'll get your thoughts. Is the pandemic over? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. Here's the question and answer from President Joe Biden to 60 Minutes about the pandemic.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
Let's get your thoughts now at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Morning. The real question was there ever really a pandemic? That's the better question.
There was a pandemic. There was a virus, a novel virus that somehow got out of a lab, whether intentionally or mistakenly.
But needed to be shut down the whole entire world? See, that bad of a pandemic?
That's
no way.
the question. Yeah, I think that's the question. No. The damage that was done from the economic shutdowns, was that necessary? Did it help? The damage that was done from schools closing and the loss of education that the teachers' unions pushed for to close the schools, did that help? Was that necessary? Was the shutdown of small businesses that ultimately led to their failure, was that necessary? And just by simply saying, hey, the pandemic's over, what does that do to all of those who were severely negatively impacted by this? What about the loss of life from despair? People who didn't go and seek treatments for ailments, people who didn't go get screened for cancers because of the constant droning of headlines of this COVID-19 pandemic. People fearful of going out, people fearful of taking part in the economy. Those are things that, quite frankly, are seemingly just gone into the air, gone into the ether, vanished. And we're still seeing some of the consequences, including consequences like teachers being fired for not complying with COVID-19 mitigations. Here is a report out of New York concerning teachers and COVID-19 mandates. This is a recent report.
Hundreds more teachers fired for not getting COVID shots. New York City's Department of Education fired 850 teachers and classroom aides. That brings the total to nearly 2,000 school employees fired for not complying to the vaccine mandate. Several cities have lifted those mandates, but New York Mayor Eric Adams has kept it in place.
So again, the consequences rather severe. That's in New York, but we had here locally a teacher, a well-known and liked teacher, a music teacher that lost his job because he didn't comply with the COVID-19 vaccine or testing mandates. And Governor J.B. Pritzker, he just recently relaxed the COVID-19 vaccine or testing requirements for public schools and daycare operations. We talked with State Senator Darren Bailey about this briefly yesterday, and he shared that he thinks that these orders all the while were lacking of any actual substance. Here's State Senator Darren Bailey on that issue.
That is 100% the message. I have been saying this since May of 2020 when I sued him and won that suit. And yes, it's election season. He's thinking the people of Illinois are simply going to forget and move on, and that's not going to happen.
So again, Darren Bailey talking about
he destroyed the lives. He destroyed schools. He destroyed futures. He destroyed businesses. People of Illinois aren't forgetting this anytime soon.
Your thoughts, 217-629-7970. Is the COVID-19 pandemic over, as President Joe Biden announced? Good morning.
Well, Greg, I think the way you could tell is whenever the people of China are free to march in the streets and protest against their oppression, because we all know, at least some of us assume or suspect, that that's where this all started, so that China could suppress freedom in their country because they had their people uprising, because of...
Yeah, there were people carrying American flags demanding that they get a Second Amendment right as well in Hong Kong, and then the pandemic happened.
Exactly, because Donald Trump was basically a message of freedom for the world.
All right, got you down, 217-629-7970, but you got to keep in mind Donald Trump went along with a lot of this. He spurred on the vaccines that ultimately were mandated by the Biden administration. Donald Trump did not push back whenever Dr. Fauci was talking about closing things down or mandating masks. Donald Trump was somebody who was complicit with a lot of this, so it cuts both ways. But the pandemic's over, President Joe Biden says. What do you think? Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for your Bailey interview. I really enjoyed that. I got to hear it last night, so thank you so much for that. And then, so thinking about the college kids, the universities that are still pushing...
Still doing it.
Yeah, the vaccine, and to me, it just blows my mind. In New York, and I hope that we see a day that, these people get their time in front of judges that can fight back, and I don't know what they can do, but it's a lot of pain for a lot of my friends, a lot of friends that have dealt with a lot of different things pushing back. I don't know if you've seen in Canada, there's quite a few people, being called extremists for just saying no to the jab and stuff like that. That kind of there's a Twitter movement going on there a little bit. So.
Well, and you raised something else, too, in my mind, at least, when you talk about the COVID mitigations and pushing back, all the censorship that happened in the past 2.5 years.
Oh, yeah.
All the YouTube blocking YouTube took down 2 or 3 of my videos and gave me strikes because I had the Fraternal Order of Police on saying that they didn't want to be forced to get a vaccine, or a caller calling in saying masks don't work. YouTube took videos of mine down. I'm just a small town talk show host, letting people speak their minds, letting news sources speak their minds, let alone the back and forth and the whipsaw of Facebook saying you can't post about the lab leak theory. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, you can post about the lab leak theory.
Yeah. And it was, I don't, why are they the Ministry of Truth? Because again, I try to speak factually. I was one that was banned from YouTube from speaking at a board meeting, and YouTube was banned from the district because of, my.
That's right. I remember doing that story. Exactly.
You did that story, yeah. So, I don't, just the whole Ministry of Truth idea. I was traditionally a liberal Democrat voter my whole life, and Bailey to me is our only ticket to fight, what is not conspiracy, which is World Economic Forum Agenda 2030. That's not
the Great Reset, and they were openly talking about that. I appreciate the call. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, they're like, "Oh, it's the Great Reset." Now, I think that you also have to think what's lying ahead in the future. A lot of people are speculating that the same type of tactics of, economic shutdowns, of stay-at-home orders could be used in the name of climate change or global warming or however you want to characterize it moving forward. Because one of the first things that we saw whenever the stay-at-home orders happened, we could spend a whole hour on all of this. One of the things that we saw was, reports of, look at how much greenhouse gas emissions decreased during the stay-at-home orders, people patting themselves on the back and whatnot. We could do an entire 3 hours tracking the beginning of the pandemic, the economic restrictions, the education restrictions, the negative consequences thereafter. We could spend an hour just alone on Illinois and all of the mandates the governor implemented, and now he's withdrawing and unwinding slowly, but he still has COVID-19 orders in place today for another 3 weeks. October 15th, I think, is when his most recent executive orders and disaster declarations expire. And he's continuing the COVID disaster, so it's still a COVID disaster, according to Governor J.B. Pritzker. One last call here. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, man, you should do 3 hours on that. I mean, I think you talk about people wanting to listen to something. Because we all lived through it. We can't forget about this.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Maybe we do that sometime. Now that the pandemic's over, let's do the reflection, right? Because according to President Biden, the pandemic is over. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and